Today, we're breaking down a proposed new law that really gets to the heart of family life, the Families' Rights and Responsibilities Act. It's a bill that tries to answer a huge question.
And that question is this one right here. Who really gets the final say when it comes to raising a child? Is it the parents? Or does the government have the ultimate authority? That's the core debate we're going to unpack today. All right, so let's dive right in. First things first. What is this bill, really? What's its main goal?
Okay, so the official name is the Families' Rights and Responsibilities Act. It's also known as S-204, and it was introduced in the Senate back on January 23, 2025. And its purpose, well, it's pretty straightforward: to protect a parent's right to guide how their own kids are raised.
Now, this is where the legal language gets really important. The bill doesn't just want to protect these rights, it wants to establish them as a fundamental right. And let me tell you, in the legal world, that phrase is a really big deal. It's basically the highest level of protection a right can get, putting it right up there with things like freedom of speech. So, you might be wondering why this bill and why now? Well, to make their case, the bill's supporters actually look way back, over 100 years of American legal history, and they also point to some very specific concerns they have today. The argument here is that this is not a new idea at all. The bill itself points to this long history of Supreme Court cases. I mean, look at this timeline. It starts way back in 1923, and all the way through to the year 2000, the bill's authors say there's been this consistent theme from the nation's highest court, that parents have the primary role in their child's life. And this quote from a case nearly a century ago is a perfect example. The key phrase that gets cited a lot is that a child is not a mere creature of the state. The idea is that a child's first allegiance is to their family, which gives parents both the right and the responsibility to shape their future. Now let's fast forward 75 years to a much more recent case. You see the same principle popping up again. Here, the Supreme Court said that a judge can't just step in and overrule parents because they think they could make a better choice. So what the bill is doing is building its entire argument on what it sees as a rock-solid foundation of legal history. But it's not all about history. The bill also weighs out some very current worries. It argues that some courts aren't taking parental rights seriously enough, and that government agencies are getting more and more involved in family decisions. The bottom line here is that the government's job should be to support parents, not replace them, and it shouldn't get involved unless there's an incredibly good reason. Okay, so that's the why. That's the case for the bill. But now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How would this thing actually work if it became law? Well, first up, the definitions are super important. Under this law, a parent isn't just a biological mom or dad. It's a broad definition that also includes adoptive parents or anyone who's been named a legal guardian, someone with exclusive legal authority over a child. Next, you've got the trigger for all of this, and it's called a substantial burden. This is also defined really broadly. It's basically any government action that gets in the way of a parent's rights, whether that's something direct, like a fine, or something more indirect, like taking away a government benefit. So what happens when a parent says their rights have been substantially burdened? This is where the bill brings out the big guns, the strict scrutiny test. This is the highest, toughest standard in constitutional law for the government to meet. It's a three-step process. First, the parent has to show their right was burdened. If they can, the ball is in the government's court. For step 2, the government has to prove it has a compelling interest, and not just any interest, but one of the highest order. And even if they clear that hurdle, for step 3, they still have to prove that what they did was the absolute least restrictive way to achieve their goal. It's a very high bar to clear. So, what rights are we actually talking about here? This chart lays it out pretty clearly. The bill specifically protects a parent's right to guide their child's education, their moral and religious upbringing, and to make healthcare choices for them. But, and this is a big but, these rights are not unlimited. The bill carves out some very specific exceptions. These protections don't apply if a parent's decision would cause serious physical harm to their child or if it would end the child's life. And what if parents feel the government has crossed that line? Well, the bill gives them a clear path to fight back. They can take the government to court, either federal or state court, and use this act as the basis for their lawsuit, or as their defense if they're the ones being sued. So, we've gone through the history, the reasoning, the mechanics. Let's boil it all down. What's the single most important takeaway from all of this? What's the bottom line? If you remember just one thing, let it be this. The whole point of this bill is to take this idea of parental rights that's been floating around in court cases for a century and lock it into federal law as a fundamental right. Doing that would create a powerful legal shield, forcing the government to meet that incredibly high, strict scrutiny standard before it can step into a parent's decision-making.
And that leaves us right here with this really essential question. This bill pushes a massive societal debate right to the forefront. How do we, as a society, strike the right balance between the fundamental rights of parents to raise their kids as they see fit and the government's duty to protect the well-being of those same children? That's the core tension, and it's the debate this bill puts on the table for all of us.